Franchise Secrets, Erik Von Horn.
If you're not a part of the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, what are you waiting for? It's franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. I cannot believe how valuable this group turned out to be. When someone asks a question, the feedback is honest, authentic, very helpful, and it's from multiple perspectives. If you're not sure that you're getting the most accurate information about franchising, then check out the largest, most helpful Facebook group in all of franchising. Whether you're a Z, a ZOR, a buyer, or investor, join our free Facebook group at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. Hey, it's Erik here. You're going to really enjoy the show that I did with Dan Claps. We got into all kinds of things. He has a background similar to mine, starting out in franchising, and he's exited some of the things that he has done, which I think is really cool because, like me, when I stopped consulting, I felt like I could talk more clearly, more openly, and had a different perspective than I did when I was in the middle of consulting or doing whatever it is. Same thing with Dan. He's done stuff in lead generation, consulting, all kinds of different things, but now he's got a fresh outlook. He's got a blank slate in front of him. So we talk about that, talk about lessons learned and all kinds of cool stuff. And at one point we get into some role playing and, I try to trip him up. He did pretty good. So I hope you enjoy the show. All right, Dan, this is going to be a fun episode, man. You and I started out as fierce competitors when we met in up on the ski hill in Park City, and then became friends. And now we're doing all kinds of cool stuff. So welcome to the show.
Hey, it's an honor to be on here. I remember meeting you and saying, holy shit, it's Erik Van Horn. I was excited to get the chance to talk to you. You're like a celebrity to me.
Dude, you're, and that's why you became one of my best friends. Cause I'm like, anytime somebody does that to me, I'd like, I've never happened before. So like, yeah, I'll never forget you. Dude, we've both done some similar things in franchising. And I think this would be super fun just to have a conversation around where we see things in franchising, where we see things in lead development, franchise development, brokers, private equity, just all kinds of stuff. So are you up for it?
Absolutely.
All right, let's go. Let's take people back to a little bit of the beginning. You and I've been in as a consultant. I was a consultant. I'm not a consultant anymore. Haven't done it for at least a year, or broker, consultant, whatever you want to say. And we met, and I think I was out of it at that time. No, when we first met, I was still in it. But I also knew you were doing some cool stuff with leads. And that's what I love about franchising. Like we were literally working with different companies, and from the outside looking in could be considered competitors, but we hit it off and, we became friends and here we are. So we both got our start in franchise consultant brokering. One of the things that I noticed is when I stopped that, it was just a lot of fun being able to be online on podcasts, talking about things without people thinking that I'm selling them. Yeah. What are some of the things that you've experienced as a consultant, and then as you've gone through different iterations of consulting?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, consulting is an interesting space. I've been in this industry since 2014. I started off as a business broker, business and franchise consultant through Murphy Business and Financial, their franchise system for business brokers. And I've had an opportunity to talk with and work with, at this point, hundreds of franchise consultants through career transition leads, which is a lead service for consultants. And so I've had a rare opportunity to get to speak with all of these consultants and ask them what are they doing and learn from them. And what I've learned is there's a tremendous amount of different ways to do the business. It's unbelievable. There's no one way to do it.
So just to clarify for the audience, you were with a company, like I was with FranChoice. That was the network that I kind of was with. You were with IFPG. And then you kind of built out a team there too, right? It wasn't just you. For me, it was just me. You kind of built out a team that was part of your team. Like you think about a real estate agent that isn't just an agent, but they have a team. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah, absolutely. If I'll give you a quick, genesis of what had happened.
Perfect.
So, I got into franchising, like a lot of people, like kind of tripped into it. I had a business early in my career in the college age that was in the event staffing. And I learned when I didn't want to do that anymore, that it was not really a business, it was a job. I was the main guy for the customers and the employees. And it was not sellable. It was just a job basically. And so I started looking at franchises and looked at a bunch of opportunities, fell in love with the process of, being sold a franchise basically. And so became a business broker, franchise broker. And then in 2016, the founder of IPG, Don Diskowski, called me up and asked if I wanted to help market a CRM system that they had built. And at first I said no, because I was focused on the business, but I realized it was a great opportunity to learn. And I said, if I can do it part-time while I'm focused on selling franchises and businesses, then I'll do it. And so we started working together, and I would just call consultants and ask them how their business was going, really with the goal of getting to know them and then, present the CRM solution to them. But everyone I talked to, they would say, Dan, I don't need a CRM. I need leads. What about leads? So after maybe like 10 phone calls, I walked to Don's office and I said, these guys don't need a CRM right now. They need leads. Went home, created a whole business idea or plan, asked Don to meet me one night at a restaurant with my little MacBook. And I pitched him on a portion of what CTL ended up being. And I'm fortunate because he had actually been doing the research and had been strategizing, starting career transition leads for probably 18 months prior to this meeting.
Did you know that?
No idea. He said to me that he wanted to start it, but he needed someone to really operate it and grow it. And I thought this is a great opportunity to learn. And so I kind of felt like I was a franchisee when we first started, because he gave me the framework. I executed on that. And then after, a couple of years, I went on to, continue to build the company in different ways. But my start was almost like being a franchisee in that way.
So there you are, you're pitching him, you're young, hustling, pitching him, he's the guy behind IFPG, which is a great franchise consulting broker network. And I love Don. He's a brilliant guy. So there you are pitching him an idea. He's thought, man, I've already thought about this for the last 18 months, and you're pitching it to him. And what do you think, looking back, he's seen in you? Because I think about this, there's a lot of us successful business owners that have someone young, hungry, smart, successful, that are pitching us different things. Like, what was it that you, looking back, now see that he saw in you to say, let's do this?
Yeah. Well, it happened fast. We met. I remember going back to a Starbucks. At the time, I would go to Starbucks at night. It was probably like 9 or 10 at night. I'd bring my MacBook and I'd keep working just to get out of my house. And he must have driven home, texted me saying, and thought about it. He texted me, said, I want to start the lead business. And then we started moving fast for a long time. I always thought, I don't know what he saw. No, in all seriousness, I think really what I have going for me is just two things: unwavering optimism. I'm generally extremely optimistic. And I work hard. I desire succeeding. And I think that's really what carried me for the first few years. And then, it was a great partnership, because he had all the experience and the ability to mentor me and teach me. At the time, I was 22 or 23 when we started. And I didn't really have any ego, because it was just like an opportunity to learn.
Are you saying you have a lot of ego right now?
No, I might have more than I did though. Admittedly, I'm working on it.
No, that's perfect though. This is great. I mean, super, like 20, 22, young, hustling, no ego, which is great. Translation means ready to be mentored. There's plenty of 22-year-olds that have ego. They don't know what they don't know, but they have ego. So I think that was an important piece. At least it would be to me if I'm looking at partnering with a 22-year-old like that. So, hey, with that partnership, what did that partnership look like? Did you go in and pitch it? Did he pitch it in terms of like the ownership percentage and who does the work and all of that? Was that difficult or is that easy?
Yeah, great question. So it was very spelled out. Looking back, the operating agreement was, I remember it actually had me as like GM and Don as executive member. And, we put in a similar amount of capital into the business. He didn't know at the time. It was all my money. I didn't want him to know. So
I love that.
No, but it was really well structured because it was a vested equity that scaled for 4 years. And there were some requirements of, being there in New Jersey in the office more days than not. And basically I earned my full, the ownership that I got to after 4 years. And we had an opportunity to buy out another partner at one point too. And we split that, ownership in the purchase. And looking back, it was just so well done because I remember like 24, 25, it's like, everybody has those thoughts. Oh, I want to move to LA or Florida. And the agreement was so well designed because I couldn't, and in a good way. It kept me grounded. And it kept me accountable too.
So that was a good thing. It was a good partnership. And let's fast forward a little bit. Let's stick around lead generation. I think franchisors are fascinated with lead generation. It's not easy to get leads as a franchisor. It's not easy to get leads as a consultant or a broker. So what do you know today that you wish you would have known back then before you started that lead business?
Lead generation related?
Lead generation business. Like what do you know today that you wish you would have known back then that would have helped you?
With the lead generation, if I were to go back again, I would have spent more time and energy, and maybe this is something we could still do, obviously, on education, on the reality of what it takes for someone to take their hard-earned dollars, potentially a significant amount of their life savings, and sign on the dotted line and buy a franchise. And there's a reason why consultants make large, placement fees because it's not easy. And I had always found that our ROI, and it's not a sales pitch for the business or anything, but our ROI for the leads was very strong. But I always felt like there was a disconnect in the expectation of what that would look like. So if I were to go back, I would have developed more training on that for new clients so they could really kind of learn that sooner so they didn't spend time too concerned about that part of the business.
What are you selling? Like if you're selling a lead, is that the business? Like as you look back, are you selling a lead? Are you selling a franchisee? Are you selling a dream? Are you selling business ownership? Like what do you, like if you look at it, like what are you really selling? Are you selling, like is the benchmark cost per click, cost per lead, cost per deal? Like think big picture. What is it that you're really selling?
Yeah, well, with CTL, we have two clients, right? And so one of them is the consultant who pays us. And then in my opinion, those leads are as much our client as anyone else. I have on my whiteboard in my bedroom to help 1,000 people own a franchise. That was my goal. And I think you've accomplished that goal if I'm.
Yep.
And so CTL was a vehicle for me to help get to that goal. Although I wasn't directly consulting, I was providing these leads, these candidates to consultants. And so I always felt like we had a duty to the person on the phone the lead we generated to give them a great experience with the consultant. As far as what we were selling to them, I always thought it was an end destination. They want more freedom or financial goal, and the business was just a vehicle to get there. With consultants, I really think we were selling them their pipeline. I mean, it was for a lot of consultants, it's their main, foundation of their business. They depend on the leads.
So when did you start that lead business again? Like what year was it that you started selling leads?
2016.
Okay. So economies, everything's been doing pretty well with the exception of the pandemic. It wasn't 2008 when there was the real estate crash and these different things. So what do you see moving forward, knowing that we're in high inflation right now, potential recession, just real estate market has changed. Like we're in an environment now where interest rates are going up, real estate market has changed, whether people want to admit it or not. And there's pockets where it may haven't, but more homes are on the market than they have been before. Money's not as easy to get. There's always positive things with all of this stuff. But what do you see? Let's talk specifically career transition, because that's a specific type of lead. And what do you see moving forward for that type of business, that particular type of lead going into this new economy?
Yeah, with career transition, we've always had to pivot. We're a contact related business, a phone business. We call people on the phone. We make about 150,000 calls a month, every month. Essentially 1% of those calls, translate into to candidates. And so we've always battled against like phone providers changing their algorithms and blocking calls and things of that nature. What I would say about the future, and having gone through the pandemic with career transition leads and coming out of that, there's always going to be, like, every day I read the Wall Street Journal, there's always something. There's always going to be something. And so I believe that, if you're going to start a business, you might start it right before, you can start it today and then have a next year, there's an economic meltdown. It could be 5 years from now. You're going to deal with it. And in my opinion, whether you deal with it early in the business or later, it's just as hard. So why don't let that stop you from pursuing? I look at owning a business kind of like, don't wait to buy a business and wait. Like that real estate saying, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. So I'm seeing though, there is obviously this mood of a potential, obviously it seems like more than a potential economic meltdown. But I believe that, if you do purchase a business, you'll get through it. I'm seeing we mostly have a lot of candidates in our pipeline of leads that are getting, a lot of them are getting called back to the office. That's been a big driver. After 2 years working from home, it's hard to go.
So
back.
they're used to working at home, having a job, having money, but also with a sense of freedom because they're not having to go into the office. Now they're getting called back to the office. So they're starting to question, like, do I really want to do this? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I see, people are going back to the office and then they're sitting in their office on Zoom all day. They don't talk to another person. And it's like, why did you make me come here? I think the companies that are being more purposeful with the hybrid and they say, when you come, we're going to spend the time on, camaraderie. They're doing better. But yeah, we're getting people that there's a time that they may have to be back in the office and they're starting to, rebel against that.
So what's the phone call or the copy or something like that is like, hey, it must really suck being on Zoom at home. It must suck even worse going into an office and being on Zoom all day. Like what's the messaging around that you use?
We call people up and essentially present them the opportunity. I've always said that CTL, what's different about us is there's a certain amount of people that are Googling, how do I buy a business? It's a finite number. 15,000 people or so a year purchase a franchise. So that number is a finite search criteria. And so they recycle around the different web domains, et cetera. We create candidates. We target people that are an executive type and we open up their mind to this. So yeah, our pitch is basically, hey, you hate your job and why don't you own a franchise?
You need to put some more pressure on them, man. You think you hate your job today, it's going to get even worse. We see everyone having to go back to an office that's old, moldy, and dusty and have to do the same thing that you have to do, that you get to do at home. Why don't you start your own business?
Yeah. We have these callers in New Jersey, in the office that come every day. I respect what they do every day. They dial all day.
It's hard.
It's hard. And they're masters at opening up someone's mindset to franchising.
How do you do that? How do they, because I think that's important. I think it's important for people even listening to this, open up their mindset, or maybe this is some coaching for franchisors on that. But how do your callers, generically speaking, open up somebody's mind to maybe never think? Well, most people have thought about owning a business, but not thinking about it in the past 2 months to all of a sudden being like, I'm raising my hand. I'm part of the 1% that might be interested. How do they open up that mind?
Well, first of all, it's the people that are making these calls. There was a period during the pandemic where I was tired of, excuse me, I was tired of not being able to find people to come into the office. And so we completely up the ante. We pay as much as $30 per hour, and health benefits and everything else, and made the investment. And now we hire people. Like some of our callers, they have regular corporate careers. They're in their late 50s. They just want to do this to talk to people. So we have people that can actually have a pretty intelligent conversation about business ownership. And then we're constantly teaching them different, things to talk about. But what they really do is they open up the conversation. They ask them, what do you like about your job? What do you not like? Did you know that these skills can translate into a business? They're good at getting people to start turning their own wheels in their mind.
Yeah, that's such a skill. I was coaching somebody today. They it was a coaching client, and they were wanting to start reaching out to certain people to open up conversations, really to open up conversation. I said, that's exactly what you do. And that's what we all do as business owners, is we just open conversations with people. And so many people try to sell right away. And the key is to open a conversation. And so many people are asking for the phone call right away, or asking for this, versus just opening a conversation and or starting a conversation with someone. A lot of that is online. So there's a huge skill set for people that are on the phone to be able to not get the click and actually open up a conversation. So
yeah, just to touch on that, Eric, what we teach them, and in my opinion, it's something they can carry on and wherever they do next, these salespeople, we do not answer anything with an answer. We always answer with a question. And so
what do you mean by that?
So if the caller calls,
I just did it to you.
You just did it to me. Yeah. If the caller calls someone up and says, have you considered owning a business? And they say, I've looked into it. The only answer back is, what did you look into? And they go back on mute and they listen. If the person says, I'm not interested, instead of going on some spiel about why they should be interested, they simply ask them, not interested or just never considered.
Dude, let's role play. Let's do some real time role playing, because this is a skill set. When I did my first franchise development job at Liberty Tax way back when, that's all we did. We were always asking questions. Like, we were taught to ask questions always. And so I got really good at that. My wife doesn't appreciate it. Caleb's over here. He doesn't appreciate it. My kids don't appreciate it, but I'm sure you can appreciate it. So let's do a little role play so people actually can see it in action. So we can either do like, I'm interested in like, you tell me, where do we start? And I'll be the prospect.
All right. I'll call you like you call any of our potential candidates.
All right. And I am a guy with a job. All
right. Maybe a medium. You want to give me not too easy, not too hard.
I won't make you look bad, because if I make you look bad, then like, you will not let me come on your podcast. We won't be friends, and you'll get in the Facebook group and badmouth me. So I'll take it easy I'll take it medium on you.
Only because I'm out of practice. And funny story is, we actually started the business. I made these calls first before we ever hired anyone. So I can.
Dude, I already knew that, man. I already knew, like, people ask me certain things. I'm like, I'm out of practice on this. I can coach, I can teach, I can do all this, but I don't do this day in and day out like I used to. So for sure. But I think this would give some people an example of like, what does it really look like to ask questions so go ahead. Let's kick it off.
Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Eric, this is Dan with Hey, Eric, this is Dan with Career Transition Specialist. How you doing?
Great. How are you?
Doing great. I was reaching out. I wanted to see, I know you have an extensive background in business. I want to see if you ever considered leveraging that and owning your own franchise business.
Man, I've thought about that in the past, but I just don't, I haven't thought about it in a while. I just don't have a whole lot of time right now.
Yeah, no, totally get that. What did you look into in the past?
Crumble cookies.
Oh, okay. And you mentioned not really having a lot of time. Is your job just very demanding time-wise?
Yeah, it's I work 40 to 80 hours a week, depending on the week. But I'm really not that interested in buying anything right now.
Yeah, no, I get that. You have children at home?
Yes, I do. I've got 3 little girls. But yeah, I'm just, I'm just super busy right now. Super busy. Yeah.
Well, let me let you run. I'll just share this with you, Eric. Most of our clients are just like you. They're typically an executive. Obviously, you're successful.
What do you mean, just like me? What do you mean?
Yeah, I see your LinkedIn here. You've obviously got a successful background in managing people and process. And we help people explore owning a business that they can run somewhat semi-absentee from afar by managing.
What do you mean by semi-absentee?
Yeah, sure. We help people explore franchises that they can own with a manager in place who manages the day-to-day, and you oversee that manager. Some of our clients even keep their job.
How much do I pay my manager?
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to get into the details. Typically what I do is I would connect you with the franchise consultant and they could go over that. Would that be okay?
What's a franchise consultant?
Yeah, sure. Franchise consultant, think of it like a recruiter or a realtor, the way they help you find a home or a job. Our franchise consultants are a free service that helps you find franchise opportunities, no obligation or anything, but they'll get to know your background, your skill set, and then match you with franchise options that match you.
So we'll stop there. I started asking you a lot of questions, but is it because those are the questions that you wanted me to ask you, or did I start getting too aggressive and started to where I put you back on your feet and where you kind of felt like you had to answer questions because you're out of practice? I didn't know as you were doing that. I didn't know if you're like, oh man, I need to get back and control this conversation, or if you were thinking, this is great. These are the questions that I wanted to answer anyway. So
yeah. Well, if you think about it, the first start was, I'm not interested. I don't have time. Right. Yep. And so the initial response was, totally get that. You mentioned you looked into something. What'd you look into? And now you're going and you told me crumble cookies. So that's intel for later. And we know you looked at crumble.
Yep.
And now you mentioned you don't have time. So you're literally telling us your pain, that you're working 48 hours, 40 to 80 hours. And then I asked, do you have children? Because I'm getting you to think about like, oh, wow, you work 80 hours. Do you have kids? You're not seeing your kids. That's what he's thinking about.
Yep.
And then those questions at the end of the day, they're asking, they're getting to the point of where you said, how much does it cost, or whatever the buying question you asked was, which
buying question. You said buying question. So this is a buying question.
Yeah, you're saying, how much is a consultant? How does a consultant work? How does the process work? I got a chance, an opportunity to explain our process. And then at the end of the day, when you ask a very detailed question, if I was a caller, I delegate that to the expertise of the consultant. Yep. A consultant would be happy to have that person we'd get a little further along with that candidate, and maybe he would change his mind and not take a call, but it would give a consultant a crack at the bat. And more times than not, that person, they're the buyer.
Yep.
They're not the person who's all giddy and excited, and they're not buying anything. You want that middle ground person.
They're professional lookers. They're going to look at everything. That's great. I'm glad. Good job, by the way. I thought you did for not being in practice. You did a good job. And I think even kind of diagnosing that at the end of it was perfect. Like what you showed. I mean, that's a real life example. So good job, man.
I would tell you, we could call the manager right now and put it on speaker. I bet he would rock it if he did it.
That's awesome. All right, let's transition. What do we see? You've transitioned yourself in from what you've been doing in business and franchising to do some other things. So talk about the transition that you've gone through. And then let's just talk about some what we see as some cool things, cool opportunities in franchising from vendor standpoint, from FSO standpoint, franchise opportunities, just future in franchising in general. But where have you been and how have you transitioned?
Sure. Well, career transition leads, as I mentioned, we did do lead generation for franchise consultants. And through that company, which we started in 2016, we were always looking for additional ways to generate leads. And so in 2019, we launched Nurture Assist, which is a part of the company department, which does lead gen for franchisors through social media, less reliant on the phones. We have social media advertising. And then Find a Business Online is our own vertical for franchise consulting, where we have a team of 9 franchise consultants that work in the company and work with candidates. And to clarify, because some people hear this, we actually take all the leads that we cannot sell, and those go to those consultants. Sometimes people say, well, why wouldn't you take the best? We're in franchise consulting the way a bank is in real estate, meaning we don't want to be, we want to sell leads, but we have to monetize those extra leads that we can't sell. So for me, Find a Business Online became a training ground, really. an area where we could deploy different ideas and strategies, see if it worked, and then provide those solutions to our consultant partners and franchise partners. So through those different departments, I had the opportunity to lead 3 different organizations really within one larger entity. And so that gave me a lot of experience in franchising. As far as transition, yes. So IFPG, we recently had a strategic investment from Princeton Equity Group, a large player in the franchise space in PE. That process started months back, and we went through that process. Career Transition Leads being a separate entity, really a sister company at IFPG, we essentially combine them into the larger IFPG entity now, and so it's really an IFPG company. Is the way I explain Career Transition Leads at this point.
Meaning you had some type of exit on that. You had an exit in that.
Yeah. So I was fortunate to participate in that transaction in an exit capacity, only because it's an incredible opportunity for the company. And I explained to my employees when I talked to them the first time the news came out, was think of me like a parent. If the business is my child, this decision is what's best for the company, right? And for me, perhaps not. And the only reason is that for me at this stage of my life, it's time to go start my next thing and do my own thing and not be. It's just time for me to move on. But it's an incredible opportunity for the business, and I've learned more in the past year than I've learned in my life.
Oh, I can imagine. So that's Career Transition Leads. Is that Nurture Assist? Is that part of that roll up as well?
Everything related. Yeah. Career Transition.
Find a Business Online. Is that part of that? So that's amazing. So I think that's really cool. You started out as a, Murphy business broker, doing business brokering, franchising, get involved with IFPG, pitch Don, the man over at IFPG, go into business with him, with Career Transition, roll out kind of two other verticals within that. So basically have 3 revenue generating businesses that any broker could have done. They haven't done it, but anybody could have done that, and you did it. I think and then you had an exit on that as well. So I think that's awesome, man. Congrats.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I learned so much from that experience. What to do better as well in whatever I do next.
So now you're sitting at a blank slate. I've been there multiple times as I've exited different things, stopped doing different things in franchising, started doing new stuff, and it just really opens up your mind. It's fun because there's an exit, which means good money, experience, and a closed chapter. Then you're like, open up the book. It's a blank slate ahead of you. You're like, what's next? And so what are some of those things that have just gone through your mind? We don't need to talk specifically about what's next for you, because that may not be all figured out yet. But as you've gone through this process of having a blank slate now in front of you, what are some of the things that you've seen as opportunities out there?
Yeah. Well, and at the time of recording this now, I currently still do run the company during the transitional period. But I would tell you the business runs very, very smoothly. And so I do have time to reflect and plan and strategize. It's funny. First thing I did is I got a WeWork office here in the city. And the guys across the hall from me, it's a startup that in the crypto space, they started becoming friendly. And they said, well, what do you do? I said, well, I recently exited a business. And a couple of days later, the guy asked me, he said, Dan, what are you doing here? Like, why don't you go, to the beach or something? And it's just not in my nature. I like to be in, even if it's just reading a book, I like to go there and study. What I see in franchising is, I don't think it's even gotten started. I mean, you look at the players that are coming into this industry in the Fran Dev space. You see transactions like with Fastlane that are occurring. Just the brain power that's coming into franchising. I think that we're really starting to move that needle up to a higher caliber. I think what's worked in the past is going to have to level up for a lot of people.
I think that's great. First of all, let's finish that crypto. Are they still there? I mean, crypto's like tanked. So how long do you think your crypto friends are going to be next to you before they move to the basement?
They're actually the office is empty actually.
Oh no. Oh no.
Not to laugh at them, but yeah.
Oh man.
Maybe they moved. They might have moved though, because I'm kind of loud, and maybe they just got tired of hearing me.
We'll say they just moved. They didn't go to the basement or close. They just moved. Crypto's been tough. I'm involved with crypto, but it makes me appreciate franchising. There's something about just having a business, and it's a main plain business. I love businesses that just make money, and it may not be the sexiest thing, the coolest thing around, but when crypto was flying high in the last year, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have put way more into crypto. And now that it's down so much, I'm like, I'm so glad I can sleep at night without having so much in some of these volatile things or where the market is going. So bringing it back around to franchising, I think there's safety in a lot of those things. I think there's so much opportunity, like you said, and there's different companies like Fastlane, like IFPG, like some of these other players out there that are in the kind of the peripheral of franchising that are being acquired by strategic partners, by private equity. And they're going to just be, when that happens, there's just going to be more money going into some of these different entities that didn't have that kind of money before. And it's going to be really interesting. So I think you have a very good read on what worked in the past, or what was good in the past is probably going to be average today. People in the FSO game, people in franchise development are going to have to level up their game to stay at the top. So what are some of those things that you see as leveling up, or what are some of those things that you see as opportunity?
Well, only in a Fran Dev standpoint, everything you said is, I absolutely agree with. And, from a Fran Dev standpoint, only a few years ago, if you pulled out a really polished video with a beautiful PDF, this was like you were an outlier. Like you were one of the only ones to do that. Now the game, the marketing that's put together. I go on LinkedIn now and I see these tremendous videos, and people are documenting when they go to conferences and putting music to it. And it's really well edited. It's professional. Just that alone, you need to invest into your marketing. You can't just slop together a PDF anymore. Where I think things are going, and this is just my opinion, and it's not really anything new. I think other people probably feel this way as well, but the generation that is moving into the buyer category, in the 35, 40, 45 category, they're more and more wanting to digest the information online. And I think a lot of franchisors still haven't caught up to that they need to provide way more to their candidates through an online experience, whether it's some type of portal or walkthrough system, because they don't want to be on the phone constantly all the time. They want to be able to digest information. You're losing a lot of candidates if you don't have that, in my opinion.
I think so too. So that is specific to somebody that's in the sales funnel. I think brands are going to want to level up their online content with the founder, different people that are outside of the sales funnel as well. Like podcasts, I see different brands doing their own podcasts. Maybe it's about their brand, maybe it's more industry related, but that can show they're a leader, a thought leader, someone that's in the know in their industry, or they can have different guests on and have different relationships within the industry, or maybe it's just business in general. But that gives someone, just like you, when we met in Park City, you knew me because I've been in your ear for so long, but I didn't know you yet. And it's the same thing with all these different brands out there. I believe they're going to need to level up in their just content, the thought leader, the brand president, or the founder of the brand getting out there online, becoming well-known. So buyers can know, like, and trust them before they even get into the funnel. And once they're in the funnel, the sales funnel, talking to the franchisor or the salesperson, they're excited to talk to the brand president or excited to talk to some of the thought leaders within that particular brand because they've already spent time listening to them on podcasts, watching them on YouTube, or whatever it is. So what do you think around that?
Absolutely. I think, like, as an example with you, you've built a relationship with, I have a relationship with your content and you outside of our phone calls and conversations, just because you put together this content that's actually effective and granular, to get into specific details. So there's a relationship and a trust, natural trust that comes from constantly learning from someone. I think that everyone needs to kind of think that way with the content. I know for me, I'm going to be stepping up my content production, because I realize more and more that it's pivotal. You have to do it in this day and age.
Yep. There's so many different ways to do that out there. If you're part of my Facebook group, that's one way that content's being distributed. So if you're not part of it, go check it out at franchisesecretsgroup.com. And by the way, I just don't say go check out my Facebook group. I give a URL that just redirects to the Facebook group. So I make it easy. So people out there, if you have something that you want to give people or direct people, just make it easy for them to do it. So it's franchisesecretsgroup.com. People go there. We've got over 3,000 people in that group now. I think another thing that we are leveling up with, meaning, the Franchise Secrets group, we're getting ready to come out by this time, but when it's out, we'll probably have a new website out called Scalable Franchise. So hopefully that's out by the time this releases. It's also, this puts puts the pressure on Caleb to get this thing done, but Scalable Franchise, go check that out. That is a bunch of new stuff that you'll be able to see. And there'll be a new newsletter that's coming out as well. We're leveling up on the newsletter game to be able to provide really good content to everybody out there. But that just gives you insight into thinking, well, Erik's already got content. No, we're trying to level up the Facebook group. We're trying to level up the newsletter. And because all of this it just increases my authority out there, increases my personal brand, which allows me to have more equity and more different brands and be able to do more cool things in franchising. Everybody can do that. But I would, if I'm you out there, I would niche down into whatever your niche is, if it's franchising in a specific industry or whatever. So people that are brokers, people that are franchisors, people that are vendors, you should all be thinking about creating more of a brand and putting out more content, because and evergreen content, and it's the long game. So many people are focused on the short game, but content is the long game, YouTube and these different things. So we certainly have gotten off on some different tangents. Anything else on content, Dan, that you would want to say?
Content. Well, first of all, a testament to the Facebook group. I love scrolling and seeing that group and interacting. I would say that the power of freelancers is incredible. There's resources out there where you can find people that you can pay on an hourly basis, and they're specialized in one thing. They just do one thing really well. And so, I think if you put just like putting any other part of your business together, if you look at content as a bucket, like I look at business, you've got sales and marketing, operations, legal, finance. Those are my buckets. And then everything boils down below it. In that marketing bucket, there's a bucket of content. Build a whole department around it. You don't have to, if you're not a content person, like maybe you don't like speaking or doing as much of yourself, hire someone. But there's definitely a way to scale that.
Use your franchisees as content, use things around you, your clients, interview your clients. There's so many different things that you can do for content. YouTube shorts are becoming more and more popular. It doesn't have to be you. So there's so many different things that you can do around content, but I would encourage all of you to start, like Dan said, you hire people to do some of this stuff. So I will wrap up the content session. And if you have any last thoughts, please share, Dan, but do one thing, a bigger thing like a podcast or something where you can take it and you can have micro content drip out of that, or a newsletter or something. Definitely, if you haven't done content, you haven't really put much time and effort into it, franchisee, franchisor, vendors, brokers, consultants, I would start getting into that game. I got made fun of, man. People made fun of me when I was a consultant because I was doing videos. They're like, what? They seriously made fun of me for doing videos. Like, not just like, haha, Erik, you're really cool for doing videos. Like, dude, who do you think you are doing videos? Like, I'm selling more franchises than you. I'm better than you. And they didn't mean it mean, but they just didn't understand it. And now they understand it. Now they're doing that stuff. Again, they didn't mean it mean by any means. And I'm sure I do that with people now myself. I'm like, what are you doing all this TikTok stuff for? Oh, wow. TikTok's pretty big now. We all do it.
I agree. It's, you know what? It's like you said, it's the long game. I'm newer in it. And I was just saying to Christian on a call yesterday, I refuse to look at the amount of viewers of anything we put out for us, because I don't want to get discouraged. I'll look in like a year, and maybe I never will look, because I get it. You could look and see, wow, what am I doing? I got 10 views of this, but you got to stay focused. It's a long game that you have to put the time in.
Great point. It's a long game. Same with me. I looked at the viewers on my podcast. I'm like, I have hardly any viewers. And somebody asked me, how many viewers do you have? And I was embarrassed to tell them. They're like, no, that's pretty good. Like, that's pretty good for being in a niche industry podcast. How long you been doing it? That's really good. And then I've just seen it grow, and people ask and they're like, wow, that's really good. To me, if I compare to other people that have much bigger podcasts, I feel like inadequate. I'm like, this is a little podcast. But then I stopped having franchisors on here unless I consult with them, or they're in my mastermind, or I have equity in their brand, like Dirty Dough. I just had Dirty Dough cookies, Boulder Designs, and Border Magic on my podcast because I've got equity in there, and you'll be seeing more of that, my portfolio brands in the future on scalablefranchise.com. But I found that they've given me feedback. They're like, Erik, once I got on your podcast, like Dirty Dough, they call me up and they're like, Erik, within days, they're like, we had 30 leads come in just from your podcast. And they're like, and they're way better leads. So people out there listening, think about that. You get into the right podcast as a guest, or you have a podcast where you have authority. I mean, 30 leads, that's, the lifetime value, the enterprise value that increases a brand is amazing. So think differently about content, everyone. Any last bits of wisdom that you'd want to leave the audience with, man?
No, I really enjoyed this conversation, and it was a lot of fun. I appreciate you having me.
Dude, I've been excited about this for a long time. Just knowing where you've been, what you've done, and the blank slate ahead of you, I figured we would just have a lot of fun. And you did not disappoint, my friend. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.